The Sit Down with Malik Wright, presented by First Star Logistics. Today's a special free agency frenzy edition. I'm here with my co-host, Ev McPhillips. But before we jump into it, like always, I want to remind you guys, give this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and join in on the discussion because we'll be answering your questions, everything related to free agency centered around the NFL. So without further ado, Ev, today was crazy, man.
Today was crazy. And I've had a little bit of trouble keeping up with everything, man, between, work and then getting off and then trying to catch up to everything that happened. It was definitely a really busy first day. And I think you saw a lot of unexpected moves, perhaps, and a couple surprises on contracts. But I'm sure we'll delve into that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, first things first for me, I mean, the tackles got wholly overpaid.
Right.
My guy, Mike McGlinchey, I'm happy for him, right? The Bengals targeted him in the draft. They didn't target him this year because way out of their price range. And as it was said to me, because everybody was mum, right? Everybody was mum the days leading up to free agency. And obviously, you have certain discussions that take place as the day goes on, if you will. But it was very, very clear to me that they were focusing on signing their own guys. It was very, very clear to me that they wanted to bring back their own guys. Von Bell was a guy that was mentioned in that whole scenario. We now know Von Bell is no longer a part of the Cincinnati Bengals because Von Bell is now a member of the Carolina Panthers. So for me, I have a lot of questions. I'm a little still trying to wrap my mind around what took place, what transpired the last few days, because I could tell you this right now. As it was said to me, the Bengals were going to prioritize bringing back Von Bell. That did not happen for whatever reason. I do not know the reasoning behind that. I can tell you it is annoying, though, right? It is annoying to be told that, okay, this is the way we're headed. And then you look at it, Jermaine Pratt, it was told to me they were moving on from Jermaine Pratt. It didn't look like that deal was going to that deal was going to happen. Then you get a guy like TJ Edwards, right? You get a guy like TJ Edwards who people thought was going to make a lot of money. Well, he set the linebacker market, right, with the Chicago Bears, and it was significantly less than what people thought it was going to be. Right now, you look at it, TJ Edwards is with the Bears. He signed for less than what we expected. It made it easy for the Cincinnati Bengals to be like, okay, let's restart those negotiation talks with Jermaine Pratt because we now know Von Bell is going to take the offer from the Carolina Panthers. And to me, it's cool. It's great. It's time to celebrate, especially if you're a Bengals fan. You got one of the best pass coverage linebackers in football at what, $7 million a year? To me, it makes the most sense in the world. Ev, I want to hear your opinion on things.
I think you got to steal with him, right?
Yeah.
We were originally talking over the offseason about what the projected contract was for him, and it was closer to the 10 million mark than the 7 million mark. So to get him at that number, it's the 17th highest average per year cap hit for linebackers. So to get what was a guy who had an elite PFF coverage grade last season, and I believe was their 10th ranked linebacker last season, if he really manages to sustain that level of play, you got to steal at linebacker, absolutely. And you can feel great in the very least that you're having that continuity at the heart of your defense between him and Logan Wilson for this upcoming season, especially when you lose two veterans like Von Bell, like Jesse Bates. You lose a lot of that veteran leadership back there, so you don't want Dax Hill to really have to fill that role, and I think keeping Pratt will definitely help. But I really wanted to ask you, too, what do you think led to this depreciated linebacker market? Was it the depth of the linebacker class? Because we know the draft class for linebacker is not looking that good, and we usually know that's what depresses a lot of offseason value. So why do you think it was that we saw a lot of these linebackers kind of signing for a little bit less than what we expected?
To be honest with you, Ev, I have no damn idea.
See, I thought you were supposed to know all this.
And
stuff,
you know what I'm
Malik, 'cause
supposed
I
to?
don't know.
I'm going to be honest with you, man. Those are questions I'll probably be able to answer tomorrow.
Right.
But I'm telling you right now, TJ Edwards is a linebacker that people view very, very highly. They feel like the guy has untapped potential. They feel like the guy, the guy really is going to be a star. And for him to go out there to the Chicago Bears and take what many people perceive to be potentially a pay cut, when you look at what he was supposed to get on the open market.
And with the cap that the Bears have, on top of the fact that they're trying to meet the cap floor.
So
they're not trying to stay away from the cap. They have to spend a certain amount to be competitive.
So I'll put it this way. A guy like TJ Edwards, who was pretty much leading the Eagles, defense, the communicator on the Eagles defense, right? For that guy to be leading them, right? And for him to get paid as little as he did, it's very, very challenging for a guy like Jermaine Pratt or some of these other linebackers to ask for more. Now, if you test like an absolute freak and your name is Tremaine Edmonds, right? Or some of these, you know what I mean? You can add
your draft capital follows.
And the draft cap, it makes it's a no-brainer. These teams are going to pay you. What did he get? 75 million, something like that?
It was
something crazy. So for me, that's where this thing is trending towards, man. So when I look at it, it's like the Bengals got Jermaine Pratt on a bargain deal. He got them on they got him on a bargain deal.
Right.
Because honestly, if you were to ask me, I thought the New England Patriots were going to shell out a lot of money for him because that's the position of need. But it also speaks to Jermaine Pratt also being loyal. That also speaks to Jermaine Pratt wanting to be here. That also speaks to Jermaine Pratt wanting to stick with continuity. And I think that's huge, man. I think that's huge. There were a lot of signings today. I'm going to pull up some right here. I know I've got some in my notes. And Chris Lindstrom, right? He set the guard market today. He kind of kicked things off for us before the free agency window exactly opened up. 5 years, $105 million.
$105 million. That's what you're talking about with this offensive line. I mean, that just, when we were talking again about Jonah Williams and people, whether you hate Jonah Williams or whether you like him, you can't look at this market for these offensive linemen that are just generally at league average or a little bit better in some cases that are getting, like you said, McGlinchey getting 16, 17. It's actually an average of 17 per year, I think. Juwan Taylor getting almost 20. So it's like, you saw this market just absolutely go bonkers. And I think a lot of people are like, gosh, we don't really want to play in those waters for that kind of money. And I think that they're looking for that value free agent, that value veteran, as opposed to going out and spending all this money on these guys. And I think it just speaks to guys like Jonah Williams, where having him on a $12 million deal right now, compared to if he hits the open market, he's going to get at least McGlinchey money. I mean, whether you like him or not, that is the fact of the matter. The way people are starved to get better tackles. I mean, every team needs two, and every team probably still needs at least one spot that they're like, I want that to be better. And people are willing to pay for it if you got the cap space.
Absolutely, man. I honestly, I can't lie. I was shocked. Okay. I want to get your opinion on it because I know how you view the offensive line. You know, Ev's going to go in. Juwan Taylor, man. Juwan Taylor. I mean, and I don't mean this to be facetious. And I know Chiefs fans hate me. But I got to ask this, like, is that move better than re-signing Orlando Brown? Like, help me understand. The guy seems to have lapses in the run game. I understand he's a good pass blocker. I understand that. And that's primarily what the Chiefs do. But the Chiefs just won a Super Bowl with the guy who was, I personally rate Orlando Brown higher than I rate Juwan Taylor. To me, I was shocked. I was shocked to see that. What are your thoughts?
I think the big thing about Taylor that maybe you can argue why he's a better option than Orlando Brown is because maybe he ends up, if this market is 20 million for Taylor, maybe it's 23 and 24 for Brown. Maybe that couple extra dollars matters when you're talking about all the people that they have to pay and all the talent they have. But particularly, Taylor's only 25. He's improved as a pass blocker every season, culminating his best pass blocking season last year. And if you say we value the passing game that much more, you just need to be okay, if anything, in the run game. We talked about, you said he was putrid in the run game. Let's be honest. Out of 57 tackles, he ranked 57th in PFF run blocking grade. When you're talking about a guy who had the highest negative play rate in the run game among tackles last season, these are real concerns. That's why these guys we talk about, the free agency guys, are available for a reason. The good defensive ends with no question marks, the tackles with no question marks, they don't make it to free agency because those positions are so valuable, unless that relationship has been poisoned beyond repair and they just need to get out of there. So I think that's important to keep in mind. I think they're projecting that he will continue to grow because we see offensive line is one of those positions. It usually takes 3-4 years before you finally start to hit your peak. It's one of those slow burn positions, kind of like tight end. So I think that's kind of the perspective. Again, you're kind of overpaying, but that's the market you have to do and to get a tackle that you really feel good about starting, especially if you're trying to compete.
I agree with you. And like I said, maybe I'm just being a little too bullish, right?
I think we had expectations, and it's easy to look at it and say that this is an overvaluing. But I mean, clearly the market dictated that you got to overpay if you want to be competitive and actually have a chance.
And absolutely, the market will 100%. Well, the market will 100% dictate what a guy is worth and what we can do. But before we continue this discussion, if you guys could do us a huge favor, make sure you give this video a like. We have 400 plus people in the comments, right? In the comment section. We appreciate each and every single one of you. This is only day one of Free Agency Frenzy, but also if you guys can subscribe to the YouTube channel, we go live each and every single day this week. We go 5 days free agency. This is only day one. We'll be breaking down a lot of news and things of that nature. Wow, just jumped up. You guys just jumped up to 443. So we appreciate each and every single one of you guys for kicking it with us here. Want to keep the conversation, going. Let's talk about Jimmy Garoppolo to the Raiders. A lot of people are beating down that move. Ev, I'm not one of those people. People are saying it's a lateral move that they made.
In terms of what, though? That's the thing. Is it in terms of value or is it in terms of fit? What way do you like
I'll put it this way. Jimmy G has been a more successful as a starting quarterback than Derek Carr has been as a starting quarterback in the National Football League. And I also think Jimmy G, knowing Josh McDaniels and having worked with Josh McDaniels, is a plus. The issue with Derek Carr, I'm going to be very, very real. I'm going to get very, very specific with you guys right now and tell you guys crap. That's what we do here on the show. That's what we do here, on the Sit Down with Malik Wright presented by First Star Logistics. I get very, very real. So the fact of the matter is Derek Carr didn't like being called out for his crap by Josh McDaniels. That's why him and Josh McDaniels' relationship was rocky. That's what people aren't talking about. The guy did not like the fact that Josh McDaniels called him out in front of the entire team, just as Josh McDaniels did with every other player in every other position group. He doesn't care if you're the starting quarterback or you're the starting punter. If you're doing a crappy job, he's going to tell you it like it is. Derek Carr didn't do well with that. That's not how he's ever been coached throughout his entire time. That's what made his relationship with Josh McDaniels go downhill. So I go off to say that Josh McDaniels tried to bring the Patriot way to Vegas. And there are a lot of people out there, a lot of players included, who are saying that may work up in the Northeast where there's absolutely nothing but snow and football, but that doesn't work in Las Vegas when you have so many temptations, whether it be strip clubs and different things of that nature that you can go to. It's hard to bring the Patriot way to Vegas and try to make it the Vegas way. Josh McDaniels tried to do that. Now, where am I going with this? I gave a long response. You might be like, what the hell is this guy even talking about? Here's what I'm talking about. Jimmy Garoppolo is used to Josh McDaniels. Jimmy Garoppolo has been chewed out before by Josh McDaniels in the Patriot system. So before we all say, oh, this is a crappy move, think about the reasoning why. You don't need a quarterback, right? You don't need a quarterback like a quarterback to be a world beater. You just need a guy that can effectively play the position, right? That could be a point guard out there that can distribute the ball. And you may not agree with me here, but I think Jimmy Garoppolo does that in this system. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be elevated by the players around him. That's a fact.
You sound like a coach right now. If I can just get a guy who can just get in there, he doesn't have to be great or even good. If he can just do exactly what I tell him to, we can win.
Well, I'm just being honest. I think there's a lot of people out there that have opinions on Jimmy Garoppolo. And I'm here to tell you right now, I think Jimmy Garoppolo is better for the Raiders than Derek Carr was.
Okay, counterpoint.
Yeah.
You're talking about the AFC West.
Sure.
You're talking about Sean Payton. You're talking about what he's going to be doing there in Denver. You're going to have Justin Herbert. You're going to have Pat Mahomes. These are the people you're competing against. And I thought we kind of got past this idea that having that just okay or average guy is going to take you over the hump, right? If you're trying to be genuinely competitive. When we looked at that game just 2 seasons ago now, that it was the shootout between Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes, and everyone left that game going, these guys are aliens. Okay. How do you compete with this if you are rolling out a Kirk Cousins, a Daniel Jones, a Derek Carr on their best day? Sure, they can come out and throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and you go, man, where did that come from? But bet your butt in 2 weeks it's going to be a game with a touchdown and 2 interceptions, and you're going, what the hell? This is not the guy. So I've always been of that mindset. You need to pursue that top 10 quarterback, or at least feel like you have a guy that can be that guy for you at some point, whether that's a young guy developing or a veteran who has the right surroundings and scheme. You think he can end up being that top 10 guy, but I just think Jimmy is firmly outside of that. And I know they committed a lot to Devontae. I know they've got some talented players and Max Crosby that they want to try and take advantage and have the most of. But looking at the state of the division right now, looking at the quarterback you're rolling out there, trying to tell me you're being competitive and win games when this guy has missed significant time due to injury in his last 4 to 6 seasons consistently. There's a reason that he is not out there and playing with the 49ers still
Mm-hmm.
because they opted to go a different way. They opted to go with Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold over Jimmy Garoppolo, guys. I mean,
but one thing I've noticed is we shouldn't rush to judgment when it comes to Kyle Shanahan, because this guy knows, he knows what he's looking for. He knows what the quarterback position offers.
Right.
He just took Brock Purdy, okay, to the NFC Championship. So I see people out there asking about the Bengals being in on Draymond Jones, and we're gonna get to your questions. I promise you we will. I have not heard that, and I asked very, very specific, should we expect any moves, like major moves for the Bengals today? And I was told no. So I don't know where that rumor is coming from. But again, it's that time of year where you're going to get a lot of rumors. You're going to get a lot of people saying a lot of stuff. We're going to get into all your questions, I promise you. But before we do, make sure you, again, if you guys like this content, make sure you guys give this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. We greatly appreciate it. We'll be going live each and every single day this week for Free Agency Frenzy. But today's only day one. But want to keep the conversation rolling. Jesse Bates gets a contract. Mm-hmm. Jesse Bates gets paid by the Atlanta Falcons. He looks what? I forgot what the deal actually shook out to.
16 mil a year.
16 mil a year. Jesse Bates signed to the Atlanta Falcons. Mm-hmm. I think this is a good move for the Atlanta Falcons. I think Jesse Bates is going to go on to have a phenomenal career. Mm-hmm. I've said that several times. I think Jesse Bates, I think there was a lot tied up in to the issues. I think Jesse Bates had a lot of issues tied up with the Cincinnati Bengals in terms of them not valuing him as highly as he had hoped, because his play wasn't indicative of that. Mm-hmm. I still will stick to the point that I think that if Jesse Bates kept his agent that he had throughout his entire tenure in the NFL before he switched over to Athletes First, I think Jesse Bates will still be a Cincinnati Bengal. The thing about Athlete First and what makes them so special is that they try to cash in as big as they can for their clients. And I understand that completely.
Right.
It sucked because Cincinnati is a place that's close to home for Jesse Bates. He's from Indiana. He wanted to be here. Mm-hmm. But he's going to go on to have a phenomenal career. He's going to go off to do great things. And I see some other questions. CJ Gardner-Johnson. I want you to touch on Jesse Bates before you do. I have not heard anything when it comes to CJ Gardner-Johnson. I asked specifically about him. I was told no, just flat out no. So take that what you will. You can choose to believe me. You can choose not to. But I don't see the Bengals signing Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I don't know what the Bengals are going to do at the safety position. They need to address it in some capacity. Mm-hmm. But what are your thoughts on Jesse Bates' deal?
First, I want to point out that we're going to talk a lot about value for these mm-hmm. players, right? Whether someone got overpaid, underpaid, and what that means for especially the Bengals retaining players or signing players. But I want to make a clear point. I think you support this, is that mm-hmm. we are a pro player. Like, we want these guys who are out there throwing their bodies around, putting their livelihoods on the line to get as much money as they can, right? And if that's not with the Bengals, then so be it. Good luck, Von Bell. Good luck, Jesse Bates. Happy you got the bag. Happy your family got some security. Good luck to you, right? Mm-hmm. So just looking at that now in more objective perspective, he lands around, like that you said, that $16 million a year-ish deal. And that's maybe a little bit less than people were originally anticipating. He was looking, originally reports were sometimes of the 17, 18 million range, mm-hmm. kind of that Jamal Adams money, which I think we saw the NFL viewed as an outlier contract, right? So maybe something that they wanted to kind of deflate that market for safeties a little bit. But I think the big kicker for why that he went to the Falcons is obviously that guaranteed money. You're talking about $23 million in year one, and you're talking 36 in the first 2 years. So I don't think that's something that a lot of teams wanted to do. But mm-hmm. like we talked about before in the offseason, teams like the Falcons, like the Bears, we're going to go out there and be big players, which honestly, I want to piggyback off that real quick, because obviously people are freaking out a lot about the Bengals not being active. And clearly, like you said, there's a glaring hole at safety now, right? And whether or not they expect that is right. The bad teams are the active ones on free agency, guys. There's not many teams that are out there making a splash because they usually don't have the cap space, because they already have good players. So again, you see the Bears, the Falcons coming up left and right. You see these guys getting signed. Don't panic. It's all right. Like, there's another wave of free agency. There's a lot more talented players out there, and they're probably going to be a lot like they were for Von Bell, where mm-hmm. you get these guys who think they're going to get a lot of money on mm-hmm. the open market. And then suddenly day 2 and day 3 rolls around, and that's not the case. And suddenly you can get these guys because they go, I'll go somewhere where I can recruit that value. I'll sign a 1 or 2 year deal, and then I'll come back on the market. And you know what helps? Making the playoffs.
Yeah.
When everybody's eyes are on you, going to Cincinnati and doing that. So don't panic. Don't freak out. Is it disappointing that they are where they are in terms of the safety position, or what I'm concerned about is the future of the cornerback position? Then yeah, but at the same time, we've got 4 more shows to do this week, brother.
Yeah,
So,
I'll tell you this. I don't think, guys, let me just preface this by saying this, because I think a lot of people are upset right now. And it's because you see the lack of moves that the Cincinnati Bengals have made. And I'm guessing we have a huge Bengals contingent in the comment section right now. I'll just say this. I do expect the Bengals still to be active. I don't expect the Bengals to be throwing, being irresponsible with their cash, especially the first day of free agency. The goal today was try to retain those players, right? The goal, they tried to retain Von Bell. Do not let anybody tell you anything otherwise. They tried to retain Von Bell. It just didn't happen. They were able to secure Jimmy Pratt for a lot less than what he probably initially was expecting, or he thought he would probably cash in. There are going to be a lot of opportunities throughout the rest of the way, because I can tell you right now, there are free agents that want to come to Cincinnati. You got to realize it's like, I'm trying to think about a ticket, like tickets coming out, or new sneakers that come out. I don't know if Evan, I don't know if you've ever been that type of guy where you go out there and
not a big sneaker guy.
Not a big sneaker guy.
I'm not going to tell you how much I paid for the shoes I'm wearing right now.
Right. I'm not going to even guess it. But I'll tell you this. Typically, the things that fly are the first things to sort of fly off the shelf, right? Are the most expensive, of course.
The hot ticket items.
Yeah, the hot ticket items that you're expecting, right? And it's, that'll tell you the value in these guys. If a team is calling you day 1 of free agency trying to sign you, damn, they probably want you bad, right? They probably want you bad. And if they want you bad, you probably could cash in. Now, if a team if the market isn't shaping up the way you see fit, well, maybe your agent starts placing those phone calls to those teams, trying to make things happen. The point I'm trying to make is the Bengals are still going to be active in free agency. They are not worried about comp picks. I know that's a thing out there where people are saying, oh, the Bengals are interested in comp. They're not thinking about comp picks. They're thinking about how they can maximize this roster. Day 1 of free agency was, okay, let's secure our own. We're not going to go out there and throw a ridiculous amount of money at a left tackle, right? Or a ridiculous amount of money at a defensive tackle.
Well, we said this too while we were getting some good listener questions, which we appreciate all of you for that.
Of course.
But when we were talking about the big ticket items, the free agents, where they were asking about Mike McGlinchey, Javon Hargrave, and we felt bad just saying no, but this is what we expect.
I will tell you though, there a lot of people did not expect Mike McGlinchey and Jawan Taylor to cash in the way that they did.
Absolutely not.
Like, people thought their contracts could be $13 million a year because the play wasn't.
There were always questions, right?
There were always questions, yeah.
Right, and that's what we talked about. Question mark tackles make it to the free agent market. You're not giving up a good tackle. Everyone wants one. So I definitely agree with that. I was curious about when you saw the defensive tackle contracts from this cycle, and you saw some of the tight end contracts that are going out there. What does that make you think about how the Bengals might target that position, whether in free agency or the draft?
I don't think every tight end. I think certain tight ends need to cash in, and I think other tight ends know that they can cash in more if they sign with a team for a year and reestablish themselves in the National Football League. I'll be honest with you. I know what you're asking me in code. Mike Gesicki can go sign with a pass-happy team where he doesn't have to cater to the quarterback's deficiencies. Yeah, Daniel, I said it, because your guy, Tua Tagovailoa, has deficiencies. The fact of the matter is Mike Gesicki will be better off signing a 1-year deal with the team to reestablish himself and entering into the free agency pool next year to actually cash in. I'm just like a blocking tight end signing for what they signed for. Sure, cash in this year, because 9 times out of 10, you ain't going to be able to get bigger money next year than what you're getting right now.
Counterpoint. Josh Oliver obviously got a 3-year.
I know that's what I was referring to.
So
blocking tight end.
Well, I'm just saying that's $7 million for a guy to be, like you said, a blocking tight end. So if someone sees that tantalizing receiving threat, you think that the market may not be in that $6, $8, $9 million range, and other Bengals players in that?
I think that Remember, it takes two to tango.
Mhm.
So
Absolutely.
for that tight end to look at that, I don't think Josh Oliver's deal could compare to Mike Gesicki, because Mike
No.
Gesicki could cash in for much more than what Josh Oliver did. But it's more conducive for Josh Oliver to cash in right now.
And also the Vikings probably have a different plan.
Right.
They're going to be two different players with two different plans.
For Mike Gesicki, it makes more sense to be like, okay, I'm going to sign for a year and get things corrected, if you will.
No, it makes sense.
So that's why, you know, that I think that's why certain deals. I mean, if that was the case, Foster Moreau would be signed. You know what I mean? Like other guys
That's
would have
fair.
been signed for multiple years and things of that nature.
Mhm.
Teams are clamoring to a team would love to get Mike Gesicki for 3 years at $21 million. They would love that. But does Mike Gesicki want that? Does Foster Moreau want that? Do some of these guys that have untapped potential want to sign for that? No. But for a guy like Josh Oliver, you probably reached into the line, pal. This is what you are. This is who you are. This is probably the max. This is his max contract.
That's fair.
That he'll get in the National Football League.
Cashing in, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure they probably reached out to other tight ends and said, "Hey, would you want to come here for that amount?" Hell no, I'm not coming here for $21 million for 3 years. Josh Oliver, what? Okay, cool.
You think Irv turned that down? I don't
Irv
think Irv got it.
I think Irv is.
Irv is the opposite of Josh. What he wants. Yeah.
I want to keep the conversation going. Daniel, we're gonna get to some of these questions now.
Yeah, so our guy Nick Trainer, he's asking, is that a big name offensive line that was willing to take a pay cut to play in Cincinnati, is he still available on the free agency market?
As far as I know, he is available, but I do know he's in active discussions right now. He was in active discussions with the Bears. He's in active discussions with the Denver Broncos right now as well. And I know Seattle had an offer out on the
Broncos after McGlinchey, still players.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So sticking with the offensive tackle, I'll go to Evan for this. Do the prices paid to the offensive tackle so far change the plan for the Bengals in the first round of this year's draft?
I think it's definitely weighing on your mind when you're talking about team building strategy, but at the same time, you already know how scarce the offensive line talent is in the NFL. And I think they are definitely thinking about that. We don't know, or at least I don't know. Malik knows just about everything over there, but how
except
they
for Jermaine
feel,
Pratt's coming
how
back
they
to the
feel.
Bengals. Thanks, guys, for that. Appreciate it, by the way.
But no, you don't know what their plan is for Jonah, and I don't even know. I think it's fair to say they might not know. It may depend on a lot on his health and how he looks this year, because if he looks like he did before he got hurt, then I think they might be comfortable giving him that $17 million with maybe a little more guarantees to keep him, locked in here and keep that continuity. But at the same time, they may be looking at that as, hey, this is Jonah's last year, and we intend to draft a tackle in the first 2 rounds or something. And if that value falls to them, then we want them to be able to take that, right? We talked about best player available, free agency is for needs, right? So does that make them kind of force themselves to take that? Not necessarily, but I definitely think it maybe puts a little bit more urgency to consider the position and also what kind of surplus value you can get from that contract by drafting a guy who's on a cost-controlled contract for 4 or 5 years.
Daniel, can we get to this? I keep getting this question over and over and over and over again about Bryce Young. Yeah. And for the plan of safety guys, the Bengals did not anticipate losing Von Bell. This is their time for this. They're going to use the night. They're going to use the next couple of hours, the night, to refocus and come up with a plan at safety. I don't expect them to leave out of, this free agency stretch, if you will, or whatever you want to call it, without a safety at some point. I'm sure they're going to grab a veteran safety at some point. It just might not be the people that you guys are anticipating. And I was told it's not going to be Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I'm guessing his price tag might be a little bit too much.
So he said, Malik, why do you think Bryce Young gets to pick the first overall, even though he's plus 400 on FanDuel?
Because the talk coming out of the NFL Combine was Bryce Young is quarterback one for everybody. At least I heard several times that a team was going to move up specifically to draft Bryce Young. No one was willing to, say who that team was, who said team was. And it turned out to be, it was the Carolina Panthers. The consensus around back channels that I speak with is Bryce Young is still the favorite to go number 1 overall. Remember, everybody's going to jump at the minus 200 or minus whatever it is for, CJ Stroud or whoever it is to be quarterback. That's how the books win, right? It's when you go for the plus money and get the things that you're not expecting. So like I said, just from things that I uncovered and people are talking, everyone is expecting Bryce Young.
I was going to say
there's a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. I mean, you heard from CJ Stroud is expected to go first overall. Then you hear Then you hear what's his face?
Well, now
Anthony
you're hearing split.
Richardson.
Now you hear
Now
Reich
you're
likes
hearing,
Stroud, but the
Richardson.
owner
Oh,
likes
the Richardson, and then you hear the owner likes
Bryce
Bryce Young, and
right.
the new coach Frank Reich likes CJ Stroud. Now let me ask you guys a question. You guys are very, very smart. Each and every single one of you that are in this comment section are smart. That's why you guys, sit with us. You guys talk ball every single time we go live. And while you're here, make sure you guys give this video a like, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate your support. We're going live every single day this week, breaking down free agency frenzy. But let me ask you guys a serious question. Do you really think that the Carolina Panthers ownership would let it get out that there's a rift between the new head coach that the owner is trying to sell to the fan base and himself about who the pick is going to be? Oh, by the way, if the owner wants a quarterback, the owner is going to get a quarterback, especially when the head coach that they hired doesn't have a good track record of drafting quarterbacks. Why? Because they always go out and do what? Sign old quarterbacks or guys that are over the hill. Do not believe everything that you hear.
Sorry.
Well, I hear you, Jimmy Garoppolo. But listen, do not believe everything that you hear. If you believe for a fact that this ownership would let that get out, that there is a rift between them and their new head coach, I have a boat to sell you in Tijuana. Listen, it's a fact. It's not real. It's not real. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. They're hoping some team wants CJ Stroud bad enough, or some team wants blah, blah, blah bad enough that they're willing to mortgage their entire future for said player. The fact of the matter is they traded up with a quarterback in mind to draft at pick 1, and that quarterback's name is Bryce Young from the University of Alabama. Again, if I'm wrong, I'll bite the bullet. I'll tell you guys I'm wrong, and I know I'm probably going off on a tangent here, and I apologize. But the fact of the matter is, do not believe everything that you see.
I want to go to Austin Eckler. Everybody's asking, what are you guys' thoughts on Austin Eckler? And somebody even said, if they cut Joe Mixon, do you think that the Bengals are going to go after Austin Eckler?
No.
I don't think so either. You got a guy who is getting to that age where running backs break down, who is still on a more expensive contract in terms of running back contracts. And he's a smaller guy too. He doesn't quite have the size and durability that you really want. So I don't see trading tangible assets when you can go into the draft with your plan that they seem to already have to get a replacement.
Oh, there's a guy asking this question in the comment section. He says, how does it benefit them to put multiple reports out if they want Young? Okay. Story time. Here we go. If there's a quarterback on the board, and I don't mean to be facetious or be a jerk when I say this, I'm just going to break this down to you guys how this works. If there's a quarterback on the board that you like and you rate him as quarterback 1, but you don't love him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you don't love the quarterback, but you like the quarterback, I could put out there in the open that, you know what? We're listening to offers for the number 1 overall pick. Now, some team may call you and say, oh my God, are you actually going to trade that pick? I'm willing to give you guys 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a first next year for said player. Those things actually happen in the National Football League. A lot of it happens during the Combine Week, which is why the Carolina Panthers were able to facilitate this trade. The fact of the matter is, these type of conversations happen on a regular basis. It happens on a regular basis. So what they're hoping to benefit from it, there's a shiny quarterback, right? It's a long-term play. There's a shiny quarterback coming out of the draft next year that I think the Rams have their eyes on, but his name is Caleb Williams. Now, if you like Caleb Williams more than you like, let's say, Bryce Young, obviously more than CJ Stroud, obviously more than Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, the list goes on. Well, if I get a boatload of picks for this pick, somebody gets one of these bozos or one of these quarterbacks, and then you know what? Next year, I'm going to take all of that draft capital and I'm going to trade up for the guy that I want, which is who? Caleb Williams. Every now and again, you have quarterbacks that come out like a Joe Burrow, like an Andrew Luck, like it, if hindsight was 2020, like a Patrick Mahomes, right? Where you would be like, no amount of picks that you offer me would get me to move off of said player, right? But that's not what we're dealing with here. The Panthers are hoping someone offers them a boatload for said player, and then they'll go out. And Trust and Scott, I hear you, man. You don't care about Panthers, but this show is dedicated to all NFL news. State of the Jungle is dedicated to everything Cincinnati Bengals. We appreciate everybody for supporting. But again, we talk about everything NFL related on this free agency special presented by First Star Logistics. So I hope that you're understanding to that. But let's keep the conversation rolling.
So I've got a question. People are talking about the running backs. What's the possibility that the Bengals trade up to get Jahmyr Gibbs real quick? And then we got another Bengals question.
I just don't see the Bengals trading up for a running back.
I don't either. No, I don't see a reason to get that aggressive when it's a deep enough class and you feel good enough about what you can get from those guys in round 2 or 3 or 4 that, again, we don't want to give up tangible assets in the 3rd or 4th round where you can get these good defensive players in a deep class. Or maybe the Bengals, looking at this tight end situation right now, say we don't want to be players in this market, or we don't feel great about these options. We want to be cheap and we like multiple guys in this draft. And they say, hey, we'll double dip in rounds 3 and 5, rounds 3 and 6. And one guy will be a special teams and move back. And and Darren Simmons will be thrilled and everybody will be thrilled. And that'll be that.
Absolutely.
So I definitely would keep that open in your mind, a possibility.
What are you guys' thoughts on James Bradbury? Some people are asking, is he going to go to the Bengals, or where do you guys think he's going?
You want to go first?
You can go.
James Bradbury is going to be 30. The only cornerbacks on the roster that are under contract after this upcoming season are Mike Hilton, who will also be 30, and Cam Taylor-Britt. I'm not counting Jalen Davis. I'm sorry, guys. He's played like 250 snaps in his career, and he's 28. Okay. That's 2 cornerbacks under contract right now, one of whom will be 30, and 30 is that age where we see cornerbacks start to break down, right? You saw it with Xavier Howard last season. It's hard not to be banged up in little ways, even if you're not tearing your ACL or out for 6 or 8 games or what have you. It adds up, especially at a quarter position where you need to be healthy. You need to have that foot speed. You need to be able to drive and plant and be healthy in so many different ways. It's tough. So I don't see the Bengals thinking that they solve their cornerback issue by signing another corner who's 30 years old and doesn't fix their problem of having depth in a year or 2, when you can draft a guy or sign a cheaper option on a younger guy, like maybe a Byron Jones, who you might feel confident about, that you can just as an example, not as an actual, like, oh, they're interested. But I think those are better options for both the long-term and the short-term than going and spending money on James Bradbury.
So looking at the Bengals offensive line, somebody's asking, would you guys make a trade or even entertain a Jonah Williams and a pick for Laramie Tunsil?
I would do it. I would. But I got to be very careful what I say, because sometimes people say Malik said the Bengals are going to trade for Laramie Tunsil, and that's not what I'm saying. If you're asking me what I would do, I would 100% do it. The Bengals are at a point now for me where it's frustrating. The offensive line has been an issue for this team since dating back to the last year Andrew Whitworth and what's his face was here, Clinton Boylan, Kevin Zeitler. It's been an issue for that long. At some point, you have to look at yourselves in the mirror. You have to say, you know what? Screw it. We're going all in. At some point to fix this offensive line, especially when the offensive line has hindered you the last 2 seasons. Now, to the Bengals' credit, I do agree that the offensive line the Bengals rostered and put out there on the football field, they were playing well with each other down the stretch. But the Bengals need to do something to address it, whether that means add depth. To your point, they can add a tackle that is not necessarily some superstar that you got to pay 16, 17 million a year for, but a guy that could certainly come in and be serviceable if Lyle Collins isn't ready to start the season.
Right.
And again, I want to make sure that all of you guys can do us a huge favor. Give this video a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have free agency shows going live each and every single day this week at the same time as we're breaking down all the latest news in the NFL. Yeah.
Just, to add on to your point, offensive line is one of those positions that, 1, it's hard to develop, and 2, it takes a long time sometimes. So in my Twitter header, I have pay your O-line, draft your running back. And that's because, 1, you don't overpay the replaceable position. And 2, it's better to have that sure thing at offensive line, to where even if you're getting a middle tier guy, you banking on a guy drafting to come in, he's probably not as strong as the guys who are NFL athletes and have been in the strength program for 5, 6, 8 years and have been taking care of their body on a professional level. They probably have a lesser technique or are used to going up against players in college with lesser technique. There's definitely a learning curve to the speed, the strength, the technique that it takes a while to catch up. It takes a while for you physically and mentally to catch up. So I would be 100% on board with trading for a known quantity, something that you have to where you say, we will pay our offensive line and we will draft other positions like a running back, like a cornerback, like a defensive end, where we can save ourselves $10 or $15 million if we can hit on those positions.
And I also want to touch on something. So remember, guys, it takes two to tango in the NFL. You know, a player could have interest in a team all they want, but a team might not have interest in a player. You know, it doesn't matter how highly the fan base views the player or whatever the case may be. It takes two to tango. It involves the organization also wanting or having interest in said player as well. So I know a lot of people are, I know a lot of Bengals fans are upset about Patrick Peterson signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it doesn't really speak to this team's new mantra and the way that they do things as well. I mean, Patrick Peterson is the same guy Bengals fans were calling washed just a year ago when he got absolutely obliterated by Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase's first game as a pro. I understand it's exciting to have a future Hall of Famer and Patrick Peterson say, "Hey, I'd like to come to Cincinnati." Who wouldn't want to come to Cincinnati? And I mean that to be not in a cocky way. I'm saying that when you look at what the Cincinnati Bengals have done over the last few seasons and who they have at the leaders, who would not want to come here, right? You know what I mean? So the fact of the matter is, and Mitchell Ellis, I wasn't talking about you, man. I'm simply just addressing because I saw you mention Patrick Peterson. So relax. All I'm saying is there are Bengals fans that were disappointed about Patrick Peterson going with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I'm just saying, he's not the only free agent that wants to come here. Right? Like I'll be real with you. I remember when Trey Hendrickson was a free agent, the Bengals fans weren't beating down his door. I remember when Chidobe Awuzie, and Chidobe Awuzie was my favorite corner in the National Football League for quite some time. I loved him in Dallas. I always felt like he was misused in Dallas.
Right.
And he also had his hamstring injuries that he was dealing with. But if there's one thing that this coaching staff has shown, if there's one thing that Lou has shown, Lou knows how to get the best out of secondary players. He does. Right? The guy who had it was the reason why the Dolphins drafted Xavier Howard. He's the reason why a lot of, why he was able to transform Eli Apple's career. This guy was able to bring Cam Taylor-Britt along and make him into a solid starting cornerback in the National Football League, which is so difficult to do, especially when a guy is, starts his rookie season injured. So I'm not going to panic about what Lou's going to be able to do in terms of getting the secondary on point. I'm not worried about what, how Dax Hill is going to perform. When you have a guy who specializes, like if we look at, we were playing a video game Madden or we'd play like 2K or something like that. And, every coach has a badge. Lou's specialty would be fixing defensive backs.
Yeah. And with that in mind, I'm surprised you're not worried about missing out on the 33-year-old cornerback who's, going to be a 1 year, probably 2 year stopgap, if that. No, but to be serious, going back to what we said earlier about James Bradberry, it's going to be important that whatever signing that the Bengals can make is going to give them a little bit of certainty, not just for this season, but next season too. Don't get into that short-sightedness of let's restructure everything now, throw all the money at everybody, go get the big guy, and just we'll figure it all out later. Because I've got some notes on the Miami Dolphins and the Chargers and their restructures, and it gets ugly very quickly in very key years. And we'll touch on that later. But there's guys out there, like I said, a Byron Murphy, a Shaq Griffin, a Rocky Sin, that guys who are still young, 25 and 26 at one of the key positions that's extremely difficult to learn in the NFL and play competently. And like you said, if you can take these guys and say, hey, I'm Lou Anarumo, and look what I did for Eli Apple. Look what I did for Von Bell. Look at Chido Awuzie. Look at how good all of these guys look in my defense and what I can do for you.
Right. What if Shaquille was just Shaquille Griffin?
Yep.
Shaq, like what if he's not like, I want to come to Cincinnati. He got cut by the Jaguars. Right? I mean, I'm just leveling with you. Let's say
there's guys out there.
Like, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of free agents out there. Sure, you may not go after the biggest name guys, but again, I'm really curious about the guys who didn't sign on day one, what happens on them day 2, day 3. You constantly hear things on a regular basis. Guys, if I told you half the things that I hear, you would probably look at me like you're a fraud because some of those things didn't happen. Maybe I'll go into some of those things just to let people know how crazy free agency truly is. Maybe I will, but Daniel, go to ask some questions. And I'll tell you what, if you guys comment in the comment section that you guys want me to reveal some of the craziest things that I've heard
in the comments,
some of the craziest things that I've heard this free agency, and you guys want me to talk about it, I will.
We're using a spreadshot.
Only if you guys want me to.
Everyone just throw everything.
Only if you guys want me to.
We'll get them.
I'll tell you what I've heard about free agency. no BS.
I love it. So let's go to a quick question about the Bengals safeties. Is there any possibility that you guys see that they go after a guy like Juan Thornhill or a guy like Taylor Rapp in free agency?
I think Taylor Rapp is probably a more likely signing than Juan Thornhill, but I mean, I would love Juan Thornhill. I don't know if that really matches with what they want to do and if they're going to pursue that heavily. I think maybe even the Bengals, after being kind of surprised with losing Von Bell, that maybe they're going to be looking at that tonight, and maybe they think after a day goes by in free agency or two, maybe he can be had for $7 million a year. And maybe that makes sense. Like suddenly it was the Jermaine Pratt deal where, wow, we can get him for that money. Okay, let's go ahead and do this.
And you got some guy in the conversation. Oh, you said Pratt was going to New England. New England had interest in Pratt. There's a reason why I set up on the State of the Jungle for weeks and said, hey, you know what? I could see Jermaine Pratt going to the New England Patriots, is because that's what I was hearing. Who knew TJ Edwards was going to sign for as little money as he did?
Even if the Pats are offering $8 million,
Right.
$9 million, does he want to go to New England to be part of whatever fiasco that is right now versus playing in Cincinnati?
Right. So, right. So here's okay. So you guys want some
they want to know.
They want to know.
All 600 people are asking.
I'm going to tell you guys some crazy stuff that I heard this free agency. Again, we got 628 people in here. Do me a favor. Subscribe to the YouTube channel while you're here. Give this video a like. Greatly appreciate the support. So one of the craziest things that I heard was Kirk Cousins was going to get traded to the San Francisco 49ers. That was one thing that I heard. You don't believe me? Daniel was on the phone call in the car with me when I got that phone call. I also heard recently that the Houston Texans might trade for Kirk Cousins. Then I was told we don't know if it's actually going to happen. Why? Because we don't know if the Texans want to give Kirk Cousins a contract, because that's the one caveat that would have to come with a Kirk Cousins said extension. That's one crazy thing that I heard. What else did I hear? I heard Isaac Seumalo, the guard from the Philadelphia Eagles, would love to play with the Cincinnati Bengals, but the Bengals are the one team that didn't show interest in him. So therefore,
he's projected like $10, $11 million.
Exactly.
Man,
Bengals don't pay guards double digits.
No.
Want some more stuff? I'm not going to activate super chats. I love you guys supporting us regardless. So that's why we have some of the stuff in here. You guys want some more stuff? No, I did not hear anything about Draymond Jones to the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm trying to think, well, what else did I hear? Baker Mayfield to the Buccaneers is a very real thing as well. That's something that I expect to happen. I have some notes here too as well. Evan, take it away as I'm pulling some of this stuff up. Talk about your favorite free agents or something like that. And I'll just
I'll actually take this opportunity to talk a little bit about the restructures and what it means. So obviously restructure has been a popular word for the Bengals offseason, right? Trying to maybe create a little bit of cap space, restructure with Trey Hendrickson, but obviously that's something the Bengals don't like to do. And there's a reason that happens, right? So we look at these teams like the Dolphins going out, making these trades, making these free agent signings, and people look at that and they throw their hands in the air and they say, why can't the Bengals be this aggressive?
Oh, I'll keep it going. Mike McGlinchey initially wanted to go to the New York Football Jets. The Jets did not want him. They're focused on Aaron Rodgers right now, which is why did they already announce the signing of that center for the Jets to the Jets? Or is that still unannounced yet? Bradley Bozeman, I think his name is.
Malik, are you accidentally breaking news on air now?
I mean, it's a bunch of stuff. I hold so much stuff close to the vest, man, and I don't say it because, I'm not really big into rumors and stuff like that. But it's so many weird accounts out there that just spew lies and talk about,
breach.
Yeah, talk about stuff, and it's like, guys, the NFL is always talking. The rumor mill is always circulating. If we reported on half the stuff, you'd be like, man, it's some BS, man. And Brock Newman, I got to be honest with you, brother. I got to get back with my people later on tonight and tomorrow to figure out what the Bengals approach is going to be, because I spoke to people in the organization today and it completely shifted from, we're going to, go after blah, 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 XYZ to we're going to focus in on our guys and then we're going to see where that lands. And then, I know they tried to bring Von Bell back. I know that. It just didn't work out for whatever reason. I'm trying to see if there's some other stuff. Dan, just ask some questions and we'll get to them.
Let me go ahead and finish up this restructure thing real quick. Oh, you're good, brother. Going back to the Dolphins, what it means since they traded for Ramsey and now what they're looking at for their cap next year after a series of restructures to create space to sign these free agents. You're talking about 5 guys for the Dolphins that are on the books for $20+ million next year, not including Jalen Ramsey. 2 of those guys are Xavier Howard and Teron Armstead, who are both over 30 and often injured. So if you want to cut these guys, you're going to have to just eat all this money that is stacked up on top of this. And that's a lot of money to be paying multiple guys who are getting close to 30 or on the wrong side of 30. It's a lot to allocate to someone. And Jalen Ramsey is rapidly approaching that as well. So when you're looking at that and you're pushing the chips all in, then that's going to really reduce your flexibility next season if those holes fall through or what you invested on doesn't pan out. It's really going to strain you, especially if you look at what they're going to do with their quarterback situation in the near future. It limits what you can do in that sense. And looking at the Chargers, especially when they did all their restructures, here's the cap hits for these Chargers players next season. Khalil Mack, $38.5 million. Joey Bosa, $36.5 million. Mike Williams, $32.5 million. Keenan Allen, $34.7 million. Justin Herbert's going to be a free agent, guys. They've got almost $35 million allocated to four different players there, and two of them are post 30. This is a lot of money to be allocating to a year and to these older players. And that's what happens when you restructure this. You're kicking the can down the road. You're not just making the money magically disappear and the cap doesn't exist. We see it with the Rams right now. They are decimated. This is what happens when the chickens come to roost. This is what happened when the bills come due. And you have to pay that. And you see that Rams roster looks nothing like the Super Bowl roster from just 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And that's what it looks like. So when you're upset maybe that the Bengals don't go out and be that aggressive, keep that in mind, because they have talked repeatedly about keeping that window open as long as possible. And Joe Burrow believes it to be as long as he is the quarterback. Mm-hmm. And they are building for that sustained success, where these other teams, you're going to have to try and rebuild on the fly in some really, really tight margins. And it's going to be extremely difficult. And I'm eager to see what the Dolphins and the Chargers do in a year or two if they don't make it over the hill.
Yeah, this is I see some people asking in the question in the comment section. They're saying, what do we think about the Bengals' current free agency approach? But before we get to that point, if you guys could do us all a huge favor, we have 669 people in the chat right now. If you all can do us a huge favor, give this video a like. We should be at 600 likes. Let's give this video a like. Please. And also subscribe to the YouTube channel. We greatly appreciate it. We'll be going live each and every single day this week, bringing you guys free agency coverage. But Evan, I want to hear, what are your thoughts on the Bengals free agency approach so far?
I think this was the expectation, right? Because we talked a little bit a couple weeks ago about we expect them to play in that range of, the $5 to $10 million, mm-hmm. right? They've really knocked it out of the park on those free agents in the last couple seasons, right? Mm-hmm. Sure, Trey Hendrickson was a little bit more of a bigger signing. DJ Reader was as well. But, I mean, it's the guys like the Eli Apples, the Von Bells that they brought in, the Cheeto Awuzies. I mean, he's making, I think, $7.9 million next year or something like that. Ooh. I mean, for a starting cornerback who's been playing like one of the best corners in the league. So they've really hit home on finding guys who are maybe poorly used and asked to do the wrong things, maybe not playing to their strengths, and realizing we can get this guy for a bargain and make him really shine in our system. So I understand that people might not be happy and deem it conservative, but I would be willing to just give it time. I know obviously you'd like to see them be willing to spend more on guaranteed money, because a lot of the contract numbers can generally be pretty close, but the guaranteed money is what separates it. So exactly. I think it's fair to say, not necessarily more aggressive in terms of attacking big name free agents, but more aggressive in terms of offering guaranteed money to the free agents they want.
And I just want to say, a special shout out to our partner, First Star Logistics, who helps us, who this show is powered by. We're live in the First Star Logistics studio, bringing you guys the Free Agency Frenzy Day 1 show. If you're looking to start your career as a broker, you should 100% apply to First Star Logistics. I've been out here in Cincinnati since, I would say September. I've been partnered with them, been running the show out here, been having a lot of fun, and truly treat us like family. We've had so many unforgettable experiences, whether it be going to Tampa or riding in an RV to the Kansas City Chiefs game, and I almost was scared for my life. But if you're looking to start your career as a broker, there's no place better than First Star Logistics. Cannot say enough good things about the people here and the culture that they've built here in Cincinnati. But want to keep the conversation rolling. Danny, what are some questions that we have?
Somebody's asking, what would you guys do for the Bengals safety position, draft or free agency? If you guys had to put your, GM caps on, would you guys attack the safety position in the draft or free agency?
Both of them.
Both of them.
Both.
Both
Capital
of
B.
'em.
No,
Both of 'em.
I would say free agency 100%, because if you're already going to be coming in with Dax Hill, right, and Lou loves to do all the different designs and schemes that he does, right, you're going to want someone who has a little bit of tread on the tires, not, 30 years old, mind you, or anything like that. But I mean, if you have a guy like a Julian Love out there, like a Taylor Rapp, a Juan Thornhill, one of those guys who you feel, like I said, might have been underused at a team beforehand, and you feel like they can shine in your scheme and what you can ask them to do, then I think that's perfectly fair to target them. And I think that would be definitely a good way to go. I agree with Malik that definitely if you want to target that veteran in free agency, you probably still want to shore up the depth you have at that position. You don't want to just necessarily take for granted that Dax Hill is going to fit seamlessly into the safety role after playing in limited snaps last season.
Mhm.
It's definitely, there's a lot of questions, and they're going to
A lot
have
of
to make those
questions.
decisions here in the coming days. Really, they don't have too long to kind of figure out what they want to do.
But they need to figure it out fast, quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Donovan Wilson, thoughts? Him from, make a trade from the Cowboys?
Yeah, he is projected by PFF for about $5 to $6 million a year. He's definitely a guy that can play. Is a little bit of versatile. Also is decent at pressuring the quarterback. 13 QB pressures and 5 sacks on 33 snaps. So you see a little bit of that Mike Hilton pass rush ability maybe there, but could definitely be a cheaper guy, like a guy who's 28 years old who might be looking to be competitive and say, hey, Lou may be looking at that going, hey, I like that versatility in my defense, and licking his chops and say, hey, we'll sign a guy like a Von Bell for $6-7 million a year and come be our starter and come eat.
Our guy Justin says, I feel like Malik felt this would go a lot differently. I can just hear it in his voice.
It's always tomorrow. We'll say that. It's always tomorrow. We'll be back here, obviously, here tomorrow as well with it and going live. And yeah, we'll see.
So I know we already talked about the tight end position a little bit last year, but how do you guys feel like the Bengals are going to address the tight end, the draft or free agency?
I think they're going to address it in both. I think that they're going to bring in a veteran tight end, and then they're going to draft the tight end. You guys know how I feel about it. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I definitely think that they add at least one in the draft, and then the question is whether or not they add one in free agency or double dip in the draft. I can see the value in double dipping in the draft and saving that money, especially if you feel like you like these guys in this deep class, to where you just say, hey, tight end's fixed and it's done and it's cheap and it's great. And we have these guys who, if you're drafting these guys right now, you're in a unique position to say, this is exactly how we're going to build the tight end position with their skill sets and how they complement each other. And you don't have to try and fit those pieces together. So I definitely think that they're going to add at least one in the draft, maybe a veteran in free agency. We'll see what happens. Like we said, the market can cool off quickly. So, maybe not everybody's going to get that Josh Oliver contract you were talking about. Maybe you can get a Foster Moreau or something for cheaper than you thought.
Somebody said, Malik, who is your favorite tight end in this free agency?
This man's been saying, can't keep his name out his mouth. What are you talking about? That's Mike Gesicki.
Come on now. We know it's the boys.
Mike shabby, gritty.
You know what I'm saying? Mike Gesicki, man. That's the guy that I would love in Cincinnati for all the right reasons. I think he is a game changer. I think he's a game breaker. I really do.
Our guy Connor's asking, what's the word on Jamal Williams? Any thought on where he's going in free agency?
I don't know where that came from, to be honest with you guys.
Me, I love Jamal Williams. I did it.
He's the one that goes like, he starts yelling a bunch of weird stuff on the mic, right?
Hey, he's an anime guy. I can just go in. I can go interview him and talk anime for hours.
Yeah.
JJ's asking, is Kirk staying in Minnesota or is he gone?
That what I was referring to with Kirk was that people were asking. I asked people to ask me what the wildest thing that I heard this free agency was, and that was one of the wildest things. As far as I know, Kirk Cousins is staying in Minnesota. I do know the San Francisco 49ers snooped around. I do know the Texans snooped around. I do know the Saints snooped around before that they signed Derek Carr. But as of right now, that's where he's in Minnesota.
Really quickly, what's your guys' thoughts on Tyson Anderson?
I liked his tape coming out of college. I thought he was good. And I wasn't impressed that well and much in the preseason.
I was gonna say 5th round pick, right?
Yeah, 5th round pick. Yeah.
You can't count on that. You can't. You can hope for depth, but you still can't just count on him to be filling in if he's got to start all of a sudden. I don't think. I mean, clearly they've seen a lot more from him in practice than either myself or Malik. They have a better idea of who he is and who he's turned into. But I think if you're going in tallying a 5th round safety to just suddenly take over a significant role in your defense, I think that's a foolhardy way to build your team and kind of attack your strategy.
Good question here. What do you guys think is the best fit for wide receiver Adam Thielen? I know he's right now considered the top receiver in this free agency class. Where do you guys think he goes?
With Adam Thielen?
Yeah.
I'd love to see Adam Thielen land in New England. I would. I'd personally love that. They need to do something to help Mac Jones. Mac Jones is losing Jacoby Myers, but Mac Jones isn't the most talent guy. He's a
they hired defensive coordinators to be their offensive coordinators, man. That is just I'm not going near that situation if I'm a wide receiver.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't know. The Jets want another person.
Brandon Bell just said that, and Brandon Bell, our guy Brandon Bell, said it in the live chat. He said Aaron Rodgers. He said, "How about the Jets with Rodgers?"
That's something where you have a little bit of youth in that receiver room between Elijah Moore and between Garrett Wilson. Elijah Moore obviously played a little bit of inside, a little bit of outside, looked good when he did play on the outside. So there's definitely room for Thielen in that offense. And maybe that's something where he says, hey, I'll come play in New York after being in Minnesota forever. And I'll just take, $3, $4, $5 million. And just, especially with this wide receiver market, we talked about the other markets. How about no wide receivers getting signed today? That's just,
yeah, that's great. That's crazy. And especially if they were like Jacoby Myers could get $17 million a year.
Yeah,
I mean, even just the linebacker market is completely crazy. I mean, TJ Edwards signs for $19 million. David Long signs for 2 years, $11 million. I mean, Alex Alonso, 18 million. Jermaine Pratt, $21 million.
Is that people just trying to grab up all the free agents so they don't have to go to the draft and try and reach on these guys? Because we talked about it. I mean, there's a lot of guys who have
strange.
Who's the linebacker out of Iowa that I'm completely blanking on right now? Is it Jack? Gosh, I'm blanking. Chat will help me. I know they'll be screaming it. They're probably screaming it at their laptops right now. But no, I've seen him projected as low as like the mid-second round. So if that's the top linebacker in the class, you want to talk about going into the draft with a dire need and then having to reach. We talked about reaching on your next best guy. What about feeling the need to reach on the linebacker a whole round early, which is already a position that's getting devalued a little bit?
Jack Campbell.
Thank you. Love you guys.
They're screaming in the chat. That's for sure. Evan, real quick, what's your thoughts? Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. I know you talked about, Adam Thielen, but Aaron Rodgers, how are they the favorites in the AFC East?
If Aaron Rodgers just went into the darkness and never heard from him again, I would be so happy. Anyways, now that that's out of the way, I think that would be great for the Jets. I love Garrett Wilson. I love Elijah Moore. I love what they've got going on with their running back committee. I love Michael Carter, Breece Hall, all those guys. That defense, Sauce, dear God. I mean, that man came in as a rookie and just absolutely dominated. I mean, at a position where you rarely see that. We saw guys who were like Jeff Okudah getting drafted highly and struggling because it is hard to play corner. And Sauce just did it like it was absolutely nothing, like a walk in the park, man, effortless. So great signing for them. Would be awesome. And they would absolutely be extremely competitive. And I think you're starting to see a little bit of the wear and tear on Buffalo as you start to hit that part where you've got to start paying guys and you lose a little bit of your continuity. You lose your captains of the defense in Edmonds. You lose your captain of the defense, arguably, if he ends up leaving officially in Poyer. So I think with that, you kind of look at, like Ed Oliver didn't quite pan out like you would expect to be. So there's different ways where you see that kind of decay of the foundation to where there's some cracks now. And I think the Jets and the Dolphins both smell blood in the water. And I think they're both pushing their chips all in. We saw Miami with the restructures and how aggressive they're being already. You see it with the Jets and all they're doing, their restructures, clearing space. So I think it would be a good move for them, absolutely, to get that quarterback that they've been longing for, even if it is just for a year or two.
You just want to remind everybody again, if you guys can do us a huge favor, give this video a like. We're only at 275 likes. You guys can give this video a like. Please also subscribe and turn on the post notification icon because I don't want you guys to miss when we go live tomorrow, same time. We're going live each and every single day this week for Free Agency Frenzy. It's going to be wild. Day one was crazy. Day two is going to be even crazier. And we just can't wait to break it all down with you guys. Daniel, continue. Sorry.
With all the craziness, I mean, is a Hayden Hurst, is he back in play for the Bengals? I mean, there's not a big tight end market, it seems like.
TBD, to be determined with Hayden Hurst. I don't think I will put Hayden Hurst on that free agency tier 1 list for teams, but he could get more money especially for teams that are planning to draft a young quarterback that might want a tight end, to pair with him. So we'll see.
DeAndre Hopkins. Dylan is saying New England should trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Where do you guys think that he should go? Or is he going to be on the Cardinals this year?
I think DeAndre Hopkins wants to go to Dallas. And I think if Dallas wants him in Dallas, they can have him if they meet the Cardinals asking price. But just from what I've heard, DeAndre Hopkins wants to be a Dallas Cowboy. Now, the other question is, do you trade assets for DeAndre Hopkins, right? Or do you go out there and you pick up an Odell Beckham Jr. who's asking for $20 million a year? Those are decisions that Jerry has to make. But I do know
the answer is pay another running back.
There we go. But I do know that he'd want to go to the Dallas Cowboys. He's made that very clear to several people.
Really quickly, a lot of people are asking about Dax Hill. Can you guys just calm the people for a little bit? Dax Hill, what can people expect? I mean, he's obviously going to be, seems like the starter next year. What's you guys' thoughts on Dax Hill as a starter?
I think Dax Hill, I think we all need to give him a chance. I think he was played out of position a lot. He was asked to play corner at one point in time. Outside.
He played a lot of box and slot last year, and he's a good tackler, but he's also a little bit slim, a little bit slender, and maybe he's bulked up a little bit in this offseason and going into next season with the intent of starting. But I think it's fair to say that he was kind of moved all around that defense wherever they could fit him, asked to do whatever they needed to do. And I think they're going to have the flexibility to play a little bit more to his strengths this season. So I think another year in the system, we just talked about how hard defensive back is to play in the NFL, especially as a rookie. I wouldn't be down on Dax Hill. I think we just also need to be realistic that if you're relying on unknown quantities, then it's like it's looking before you leap. It's not checking for sure footing before you step. It's all those things. So I don't think there's any reason to be down on him. I think it's just, you hope for the best.
All right. Well, that's all the time that we have here we want to thank you guys so much for joining us live on day 1 of Free Agency Frenzy, provided to you by the Sitdown Malik Wright, presented by First Star Logistics. Me and my man Ed will be back here tomorrow, same time, same place. I will be breaking down all the latest news. Do us a favor, like this video, subscribe to our channel, turn on the post notification icon so you don't miss when we go live tomorrow at 6 p.m. We'll be answering all your questions. Tomorrow we'll be live for even longer, but Evan has an anniversary date that he has to get to, and you know
Going
what?
to the precinct, baby.
Yeah. So you know what? I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in with us and asking us all these questions. Tomorrow we'll be live for much longer with you guys, and we'll probably just have to order some pizza, man, and something to drink or something like that, so that way we can camp out.
Pizza and beer,
and camp out with the people. So tomorrow we'll be answering all your questions again live, same time. Give this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow First Star Logistics on Twitter, follow my man Evan on Twitter, and we'll see you guys tomorrow 6 p.m. live on the Sit Down Free Agency Day 2, Free Agency Frenzy Day 2.